Hello everybody, John here, and today on To The Garage I thought I'd spend a few minutes talking to you about ramps, as we'd most commonly call them in the UK, or lifts as you tend to say in the States. What is the best sort of lift or ramp to install in a domestic garage? As most of you will probably know, I'm trying to build the most space efficient personal garage to play around with my projects in, and one of the key pieces of that is installing a lift or ramp in here. And there are many options on the market from all sorts of different suppliers, but this isn't about the specific product. This is about what sort of lift to install. So I've already made my decision, and I just want to run through you guys my thought process in case it helps any of you guys make your decision if you're going to get a ramp or lift installed in your garage. First thing to note is I have tidied up, I have painted the floor, I have made my garage as big and as empty as it can be, and I'm very lucky. I have a, by UK standards anyway, good sized double garage, and that is a 5 metre by 5 metre garage. Some of you will not have the space for such a thing, it doesn't come with your house. Others, particularly if you live in the States, in areas with plenty of space, think that's barely a single. So I can only share what I've got. I'm very proud to have this much space. So 5 metre by 5 metre garage. It's got some height, but there's rafters and bits and pieces in there. So essentially I've got just about 8 feet of height inside my garage. Probably the most common thought when you start debating ramps, lifts, is the 4-post lift. So I've done my research, and what I've laid out on the floor using the 3 red buckets and a green wash bucket technique is the footprint of the most compact, readily available 4-post lift that works off domestic supply. That is single phase, and that's about 2.5 metres by 3.5 metres to the outside edges of the pillars. Now if I installed this in here, let's look at the pros and cons. From a space point of view, it all fits. However, what I've done essentially is brought down the width of my garage, there's me, to a small corridor here, just wide enough to be able to get through my door. Because I have my compressor built in the corner, I have a gap just wide enough to get through. Let's look back at that. So that's the situation. I look across, and I've left myself just under 1 metre to where my toolbox is. And yes, of course, the toolbox is on wheels and could be put on the wall to my left. And then down this side of the garage we have a space, and that space is by no means big enough for a car, so it's effectively a single garage now. But certainly you can wheel in a barrow, boxes, store things up against a wall, move around, put your toolbox over here. So it's doable. It's doable. But that is quite a compromise on the amount of space that you have. So why would you want a 4-post lift? 4-post lift is the most stable. It's basically a piece of road that goes up and down, so your car is going to be very stable, very secure. They tend also, because of the 4 pillars, to have 4 mechanisms, often 4 lifting mechanisms, if not 2. So they tend to have a bit more power for their size and can lift heavier vehicles. But as most lifts in the sort of price range I'm looking at can lift 3 tons, then that really isn't an issue for me. My heaviest vehicle is actually my pickup truck at, a little over 2 ton, let's say. They also give typically the biggest clearance here down the middle, because there's generally nothing front or rear. You can go the entire length of the vehicle and there's nothing masked off down that middle just over 1 metre wide strip. Another reason you might go for a 4-post lift is typically they can lift very high. They can more or less wind the vehicle to the top of their own pillars without any extra stability issues. Because I'm limited on height, that's kind of a lost benefit and something I'm not going to gain from. For the units that have to be bolted down, a 4-post lift doesn't need the same degree of concrete integrity as a 2-post lift, because it is inherently stable. It is standing on its own 4 legs. And some of the lifts available, including the one I've mapped out here, are actually capable of being fully freestanding and just sat on top of the concrete. You'd be well recommended to pin them down, but it isn't what makes them strong. Let's look at some of the negatives. Negative number 1 is physically it's large, hence the layout on the floor, and it does kind of compromise my space efficient garage. Next one is, if you want to take the wheels off and do work on the wheels or in the suspension area, they're not actually the most convenient, because the wheels are what's holding the vehicle up. You've effectively got to raise the car and then jack it up using this elevated road to jack from, and you're masking off some of your access points. And if your typical need for a ramp is lift car in the air, whip a wheel off, play with brakes, whip a wheel off, get access, etc., then this isn't the best way to go. Ta-da! So, next up, we've got the 2-post lift. And here I've tried to simulate the 2-post lift. The red is one pillar, the red is the other pillar, and the white or blue strips are the arms. And these arms obviously swing and are free moving, but make contact with the bottom of your vehicle. So the access with these is rather better with the vehicle missing, because you've only got the 2 pillars. There's no restriction here by the door. I've left myself a 700mm gap here, which is snug, but they don't recommend that you fit these pillars, which you need to bolt down, any closer than 500 to the edge of your concrete anyway. As I come forward, I will have better access past the corner of my compressor station, but the front of the car might be out here. And over this side, we really have started to eat into the space. You can see a dining chair there, just over 2 dining chairs widths. So I'm going to say that I'm going to estimate no more than, let's say, 1.5 meters left. Still usable, still doable, and that would put in our 2-post lift. What's the pros and cons of the 2-post lift? Well, number 1, they're usually quite good value for money. There's only 2 physical elements, both motorised, generally linked along the floor, occasionally linked above. So they're quite cost effective. The access is their big win. Basically, they mask off nothing underneath your car. Essentially, each of these rods represents a swinging arm that would have a pad on it, much like on the end of a trolley jack. And you have 4 trolley jack points, and these are located under the appropriate part of your vehicle, and you lift it from them. The wheels dangle, and you mask off literally nothing underneath your car. So by far the best type of ramp or lift in terms of access. Typically the pillars are quite tall, so although I can make it work, they would have to go between the rafters. Next thing is they do need a really good concrete base, and you've got to do tests on it to make sure it's the right type of concrete, but it's at least 6 inches deep of the right type, and if not, basically cut a big hole and pour in some better concrete. I know my concrete is not to the right standard, so I would have to cut basically like a cubic meter around each of these and pour some more concrete. Where 2 pillar lifts have negatives, part of it is that installation, the bolting down and the quality of your concrete has to be just right. They're also not as inherently stable as some of the other types of lift. Obviously the car is suspended at 2 points. The arms, although there's 4 of them, are coming back to 2 points. You wouldn't want to be doing some really heavy work that involved dangling off the front or the back of your car, because you'd start to rock it, if you like. 2-post lifts, you can find things on YouTube where the lift has collapsed or somebody's used it incorrectly. They've loaded a vehicle on that's very tail heavy or very nose heavy and not thought about it. So there is some safety issues, but this would probably be the lift of choice for most professional garages. So that tells you an awful lot. You know, this is the real deal. This is probably the lift of choice. Now we move on to the much rarer, very interesting 1-post lift, single post lift, side lift. Basically, if you imagine a forklift truck and you've got your forklift stood here, holding its forks out, its arms out, if you like, you drive across the forks of the forklift and then lift the car up. Now, first instincts with this is fabulous from a space point of view. I've still got to have it a particular distance away from this wall, A, for access, and B, because you can't have it too close to the edge of the concrete. You can get these things freestanding, but the base plate on a freestanding one would be quite large. More typically, they will be bolted down. And yeah, with the car missing, you've only got that 1 pillar obscuring anything in your garage. You've still got the trip hazard of the ramps, obviously, but you can't help everything. They are usually able to lift very high as well. Again, not really a consequence I'm interested in my garage, but they do have that large lifting range. Negatives. First of all, because their forks, or often their whole platforms, have to extend underneath the vehicle, even the most bare forklift style of single post lift does mask a horizontal strip straight across the vehicle. And access is still very good if you can get one with the open middle rather than a filled in middle. But you are, because you're going transversely across the underside of the car inside the wheelbase, what you're effectively doing is masking off the gearbox, so you can't take the gearbox down and out. You can't take the exhaust down and out because these are basically underneath of it. You can't necessarily get easy access to brake lines, fuel lines, etc., because again, they're going to run over the tops of these ramps. But you have got that dangle wheel effect, which is so desirable on a 2-post lift. So swings and roundabouts. For me, and this is almost embarrassing as an engineer, I don't think I could bring myself to have one of these, because with a car suspended above you and only one pillar, my brain just won't allow me to think that it's secure and safe. And I know that it is, but it's only as secure as the ground anchors or the gusset and then the foot, and inherently it's going to have some springs, so you're going to see the vehicle twitch around and move around a little bit above you, and what can I say? It would make me scared, so I don't like the concept. There is an alternate version of a single post lift which has actually got a sunken cylinder literally in the floor, but of course, although that's beautifully elegant, much more safe, etc, etc, you've got to dig a big hole. It's quite an engineering feat, and you are definitely going to mask off a good deal of the bit of the car that you might want to get at. Then we come to the platform scissor lift, and spoiler alert, this is where I'm headed. So platform scissor lift is basically two solid ramps that don't run the full length of the car. They only run the length between the wheels. They're about 500 wide. We can leave this ramp flat on the ground. It comes with on-off ramps which basically smooth the entry onto the platform. The height of the entire device is 100 mil. And whilst that might be a little on the low side for a maybe lowered XK8, it's not a problem, because obviously you can taper the ramp into it, do all sorts of things, including letting it into the floor and being completely flush if you so desired. So with this device, there is a separate controller which is connected by a hydraulic hose, which can be anywhere. So you're not really restricted to being close to a wall. And these devices typically can be moved by one person, because a whole assembly has casters that can be lowered from it and maneuver it around on the garage floor. In this position, this is where I would normally park my Jaguar anyway. So the device just lives underneath the car. When you look at the overall width, it is about 3 inches, about 75 mil wider than the car is. So the footprint sticking out, what does it, is it a trip hazard? Is it in the way? No more than the car was. And I can decide to move it tomorrow and move it over this side. I can move it over that side, or I can drag it out onto the driveway and work out there. In terms of other positives, you've got this nice, completely empty area here to work in. On floor level, there is a bar front and rear that would not necessarily move, so that stays down. So up at working height, there is nothing. Negatives include the fact that yes, you are masking off in the same way as a 4-post ramp would mask off a reasonably wide area of the car. But unlike a 4-post ramp, this allows the wheels to dangle, because this is much shorter than the wheelbase of the car, and so it gives you that great access to wheels, brakes, wheel arches, springs, etc. But you are masking off some of the things that are above these ramps. Not the most convenient thing, but should you wish to work on something that's very close to the edges, then there are rubber blocks that you sit on these ramps to obviously stop damage to the underside of your vehicle. You can jack the car up on the ramp, much as you would with a 4-post lift, position it on an effective and stable steady, some sort of axle stand in effect, and then that gives you improved access. But it is compromised in those two areas. But for the majority of us, having access to everything at the front of the car because it's hanging out over the front, everything at the back of the car behind the front edge of the wheels because it hangs out over the back, and everything in a 1 meter wide strip down the centre is a pretty good compromise, I think. Prices are good, and it doesn't take up any of my space. I could position this so that I can get 2 cars in the garage and I can drag it out. There is another variant which we should just discuss briefly, and that is essentially a scissor lift like this, but it does not have the solid ramps. Instead, imagine the scissor lift is just a middle section of the ramp, and it now has arms which swing out and can be positioned anywhere with, again, the cup like on a trolley jack at any point, and there'll be another pair of those arms there. And so that eliminates the entire flat beds which mask off some of the underside of your vehicle with the platform scissor lift. So why not go for this? Some of it is convenience. When I've parked my car on a platform scissor lift and then I come in and think, I'd like to look under it. All I need to do is turn it on and then it'll go up. With this, I've got to arrange the cups in the right place, scuff around underneath. It's just a little bit more effort. Plus, the payoff for having these arms sticking out with very little masking, if you like, is there has to be cross bracing and mechanism in the middle here. And whilst it's not blocked off solid, what there is the hydraulic rams, the scissor action, etc. in this central area, and you can't fully get through this gap. You can reach in, you can get at stuff, but you can't, it's not a passageway, you can't walk through. Both this and the platform scissor lift that I was looking at before, the ones I've been looking at that are really compact, have the very low profile, they don't have massive amounts of lift. They've got the lifting capacity in terms of weight, so they will lift 3 tons with no problem, but they're only going to lift their platforms to a height of approximately 1 meter, give or take, depending on the model that you look at, and they're called mid-rise lifts. Now, again, for me, unless I destroy the roof of my garage, that's not a big issue. And what it does mean is to work under the vehicle for any amount of time, you can't wander around like I am at the moment. What you can do is sit down underneath the vehicle and work like so. And you maybe get yourself a trolley seat, something like that. But yeah, it doesn't give you the walking under ability. And if you had the head height, that might make you choose a different sort of lift to the one that I'm going to go for. So I'm going down the platform scissor lift route. That's where I'm headed, guys. What's the prep that's been needed to get to this point? Obviously, I'm in the UK and I'm not an electrician, so I can only comment on what I've needed in the UK to advise an electrician to do for me. So, obviously I've cleared my space, I've prepared my floor, as in I've painted it, and the other thing that I've had to do is install a 16 amp supply for the hydraulic pump that is going to come with my kit. So this, if you're in the UK, is a 16 amp outlet. If you're a caravan or a camper, you would recognise that anyway as a standard sort of thing that you'd use to charge up or put mains onto your caravan. that's a 16 amp outlet. That has got a heavy duty master switch, which means it can be isolated and it can even be locked off, which is not anything I'd ever need to do. And in order to put that in, I've got to have some armoured cable installed, and this is a new consumer unit which has actually got some very heavy armoured cable going to it, and now provides me with a 20 amp supply. There we go. So I've got a 20 amp supply to the garage. So this is a breaker that will break at 20 amps, but the it supplies my 16 amp socket. And to achieve that, armoured cable has had to be brought in all the way around my rather large garden, through my shed, down the wall, down the side of the house, into the loft, and into the main supply from the street. So for me, it has not been cheap. However, what's the reason for that? The reason for that is I have a house with decent electrics that is supplying a shed that is supplying, also was supplying, a garage in which I have a compressor with a rather old and large motor on it, and I weld in here, etc. And then from here it supplies the static caravan that I have in my garden for my friends and family when they're visiting. And the whole arrangement was, in the opinion of my electrician, just a little bit too much for the supply I'd got to my garage. If you've got a conventional house and a conventional garage, then there should be no problem attaching a 16 amp supply in your garage straight to whatever you've got there at the moment. So it's been rather a long journey for me, but it's just more about the circumstances around the property than it is electrical problems. So I'm going for a lift from Strongman. I'll be ordering that very soon. All work on single phase electrics. I won't need to bolt it to the floor, but have the option of doing so. I'll be plugging it in there, and it'll have a hydraulic motor on a little trolley that supplies through some flexi hoses to the ramp. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little wander through my thought processes on how to choose a ramp for a domestic garage. Hope it's of some help to you guys. I've been flicking up some quick images of products by Strongman just because A, it's in the UK, B, their prices are very keen, not a sponsorship thing. I'm buying this with my own money. But many other brands are available. Please don't say I'm saying but they're the best. I'm not. I'm saying that's what I'm going for. I've looked at all the options. Some of them are way too higher quality for me to spend the sort of money I'd have to. Some of them are cheap and nasty and really only for the hobbyist. Strongman for me just seemed like a good range of products which are very obviously used by professionals. Jaguar use them for a lot of things themselves. A lot of private garages I've seen their kit in. So for me it just felt like the right compromise. Get one, I recommend it. You'll be seeing mine being installed very soon. Apparently the packing case dismantling and getting it out is quite a challenge, so we'll be looking forward to that. I'm going to get on and finish washing Purdy because she's covered in water spots now, but see you again soon on To The Garage.